So yeah, PPC and our experience of that led to the entire vision of Shoptimize. Shoptimize is born from a scratch your own itch moment. So as a PPC agency, we needed to be able to manage feeds. Managing just Google Shopping campaigns is only 50% of the job. So we needed a software that would allow us to have full control, be able to manage and deliver exactly what we needed to be able to deliver for our clients. We went out and had a look at the software that was already out there at the time, and it was either it didn't quite give us enough, or it was either so expensive that we couldn't afford to absorb those costs as a business. And it was kind of with those principles that we decided we'll build our own, and we went from there, and we built software that really served our purpose and served our clients. And it was a really good experience. Is kind of you're in that beta where you're taking the software that you've built and proving that it works with your own clients. And Shoptimize really was born from that.
Yeah, hugely important. Like I say, that intelligent software and powered by people. That's all around what our devs have given the guys, and then really from there, it's how can you take a small group of people and over the years turn that into 40 to 50, and that comes with a lot of pain points and growth throughout the years, people wise. But the people that we've got, they've all learned, they all experienced. We've got some guys that have came into Shoptimized without any sort of paid search experience, and they've sort of adapted the way that we like to approach PPC, the way that we like to approach feed optimization, and we do it in a way that is built by Shoptimized, and that's what our clients, they see that in the work that we do in their accounts, and then they see in the work that we do within feeds, and our agencies, they trust us, they ask us for advice, they reach out to us all the time and ask how they can improve their feeds, based on our feed audit tools and the platform too. So the platform has evolved, we've evolved, and on the back of that, we've been able to provide a great service. Yeah, the journey has went through quite a lot of change in this industry. I think CSS, back to my earlier point around how that disrupted the market, I think that's played a huge part. It isn't just Shoptimized. The other digital agencies or platforms that are similar to us, they've felt that, and people have adapted. People have changed their whole business model because of CSS. And I personally feel like the days of a retailer working with one agency, they're kind of the thing of the past. I mean, if you speak to most enterprise retailers, and they may work with an internal team, they'll have an agency, but they'll also might have somebody like Shoptimize, which are CSS partners. And CSS partners, they'll have their own way of approaching Google Shopping. We approach it by building multiple merchant centers and having multiple variations of a product feed to get more dominance in the marketplace. Google Shopping has evolved, and businesses have adapted and evolved with that too. The future with more sort of smarter and profitable, I think that comes down to how we can create tools that allow retailers to react faster. So they're going to need analytical data, and that's going to be driven from multiple variations, really. So like Merchant Center, analytics, Google Ads, and Shoptimize needs to be equipped to perform across multiple channels. And if we can do that and achieve that, which we will, we'll be able to offer a platform that is multifunction and across multiple channels, and there'll be data points in there that allow us to really give retailers what they need to perform and build better campaigns.
So is there anything we'd have done differently in how we developed the platform? And you could answer that by saying everything, but ultimately by saying nothing. Because if you go back and change everything or things that you did, we might not arrive at where we are today. We're really proud about where we are today and how the business has shaped up and how it's evolved and the journey that we've gone on. So, to be honest, probably change nothing, but learn a lot and take those learnings forward of how we grow as a business moving forward, rather than looking back and thinking about what we would change. We've obviously you made mistakes personally, you made mistakes in business, but you just learn from those things, and it shapes the business and how you grow into the future going forward. with feed optimization, it's like you can never stop. Your product feed doesn't stand still. There's new products coming to it all the time. Seasons are changing, seasonality's changing. You're in and out of sale. Your stock changes. Your bestsellers drop out. New bestsellers come in. You can never just optimize a feed and think it's done. It's something that needs to constantly evolve. Best practices constantly evolve. How you want to optimize your feed, how you want to build your campaigns, your strategy behind it. It's all baked in, so it never stops. It's just a constant, ongoing iteration, constantly chasing better perfection. It's hard to achieve perfection because things will always change again. So it's ultimately that you can just never stop. It's always just that pursuit of being better.
Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, we are delighted to be joined by Brian Lavery, who is one of our newest advisors to the board here at Shoptimised. Previously, Brian has spent a number of years at Google, most recently as head of the UK and Southern Europe for CSS Europe. So Brian is going to have some fantastic insights for us, looking at what we've just seen in peak, but also some general thoughts about looking ahead to 2026. So, Brian, first of all, welcome and thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Hey, thanks, John. Delighted to be here.
So let's get started, Brian, with a question first of all, really about your involvement with Shoptimised. So, what was it that about Shoptimised that caught your attention, and how did your experience leading CSS across Europe shape the way that you've seen the opportunity of working alongside Shoptimised?
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. I'm delighted to be working with the Shoptimised team. I've known John and Nick and the guys for years now. Through all my time at Google, my team was managing the Shoptimised account as part of the CSS, the comparison shopping service business. And they first caught my eye because, honestly, because of the appetite for innovation that John was bringing to the partnership with Google from in the early days. They were always ready and willing to try new things, especially if they thought that it would add incremental value to their clients. And that could mean testing new technology, piloting new ways of working together, and thinking outside of the usual boxes that we operate in. The company's culture is based on constantly finding new opportunities, hunting for hidden potential, and figuring out how to realize it. So we saw that come to life in a number of different ways when we were working together when I was at Google. But what kept me interested actually in the longer term was a different aspect of the culture, which was about the people. The team that Shoptimised has in Newcastle has a real authentic humility that is pretty unique in the e-commerce technology space. They treat their clients and each other like they'd like to be treated. And there's a real sense of professional integrity and fun as well to how they work, which makes it just enjoyable to be around.
Great, that's really interesting to hear. And yeah, certainly, we always say that Shoptimised is people powered software. So the people are very much a big part of the story here at Shoptimised. So if we look a little bit into what we've just seen, so peak in 2025, I think everyone has now acknowledged was longer and more spread out than it has done previously. So rather than that kind of single intense day, what are the kind of key lessons that you think retailers and agencies should learn from this kind of length? I don't know what the word is, the lengthening basically of the peak period, that kind of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, etc. period. What are some of the lessons that retailers and agencies should learn from this?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And it's probably not taking anyone watching this is not taken by surprise by this. This has been a trend that has been going on for a number of years. Black Friday and Cyber Monday and the peak moments in the peak period have been have been, what would you call them? Less high as peaks than they have been in the past. And the intensity of the retail shopping period has spread out really from mid-November or early November all the way to the end of the year, which can be really demanding on a retail business and on an e-commerce retailer. So for me, that means a couple of things in terms of how retailers can make the most of it and prepare to be successful. One is about it being a marathon and not a sprint. and preparing your own mindset and also that of your team internally, if you're working in an e-commerce business, for the length of time that everyone's going to be on. And that can be really demanding and it can be exhausting. And you need to invest in people a little bit and make sure that that you pace out the intensity so that people aren't burned out before you get closer to the Christmas period and the final weeks of the shopping intensity, and even for January sales that come up later on. Um, but along with that, you also need to be on the ball. It's a real balancing act, because the other point that I would make is about investing in some capacity for flexibility that can happen through the partners that you work with or the tools that you enable when you're coming into the peak period. But it can also mean maybe holding a bit of budget in reserve so that as any unforeseen opportunities arise, you have a little bit of extra ammunition to invest in areas that might come up that you didn't expect. So those are two. They're almost contradictory pieces of advice, but I think that having realizing preparing for the endurance aspect and also preparing for some flexibility are the two things that stand out to me.
What are some of the changes that you've noticed over time? If you look at kind of the history of really the development of Black Friday as an event, I'm sure obviously with your years of experience at Google and your role within shopping, what are some of the changes that you've noticed over the years in terms of how this period has sort of developed into what it is now, which, as you say, is a much sort of longer experience for agencies and retailers to cope with?
Well, one is that the industry has gotten better at delivering because the we've adapted to the intensity over time. So if you were to roll back, 4 or 5 years ago, there would surely be every Black Friday one or two major retailers who would have an outage of some sort because the technology wasn't couldn't handle the demand, essentially. And if you pushed out an offer that was particularly appealing, you'd also be kind of crossing your fingers and hoping that you wouldn't get so much interest that it would actually cause the whole website to fall over. So thankfully, we've come past that period, and all the systems that we're working on are a lot more stable. Um, and there is the automation that has come to the fore in the industry has made things a lot easier. And this addresses a little bit my previous point around investing in flexibility. Some of the automated tools that are more commonplace now can take advantage of new opportunities in the moment. Google invested a lot in those sort of capabilities, and other advertising platforms have done similar to enable really rapid shifts in budget and campaign targeting as surprise areas of activity come to the fore. So that's one way automation is helping that flexibility come out. That's one big way that things have changed. I also think, though, you do read a lot of mainstream press headlines now about Black Friday fatigue and some consumers not necessarily trusting that the offers they're seeing are really all that special. And that there might be price inflation in, the early autumn after the summer, and that Black Friday is a time when the great discounts of the past might be a thing of the past. I don't think that's necessarily true, but that is a perception that's out there, and that's one that, from a marketing perspective and a messaging perspective, that retailers need to keep in mind and need to tackle.
That's it's interesting you say that. I mean, one of the things you talked about just there was some of the challenges around the technology and around the automation, that just in terms of the role of a CSS partner, someone like Shoptimize. What's the role that Shoptimize will play in helping businesses through some of those challenges with things like the automation, but also about visibility, control, and ultimately profitability as well?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the comparison shopping service space has been well established for a few years now, and hopefully everyone watching this is familiar with it and knows what a CSS does, the role that they play. But essentially, in order for retailers to tap into the demand, the shopping demand that comes through Google Shopping ads in Europe, you have to work with a comparison shopping partner, or a CSS. So they're essentially the gatekeeper to accessing to running shopping ads campaigns in Europe. Um, that's just the very bare bones table stakes, and comparison shopping partners like a Shoptimize, and especially the premium partners who are the more advanced handful of CSSs out there, offer tremendous additional value around areas like feed optimization, which is a major specialty or specialism for Shoptimized itself, tapping into incremental ways to drive new value from pre-existing campaigns. Um, and that so there's a lot of additional services that CSSs provide that enable retailers to be successful, in particular when it comes to the busiest times of year like now.
Yeah. I think in the past you've talked about what's called a zombie campaigns. The zombie campaigns keep spending sort of long after they've sort of really finished delivering value for a retailer. How does zombie campaigns sort of happen, and what can retailers and agencies do to eliminate them before they start draining the budget, particularly at these busier times of the year?
Sure. And well, I wouldn't think that you need to eliminate them necessarily. So well, first of all, it's a great question, and it's a really important one. I love that we call them zombies. Um, if they are the Walking Dead, the goal is not necessarily to kill them off. It's more to bring them back to life, because these are products that are not necessarily universally unloved. They're just underserved by the ad campaigns that they're a part of. So when a retailer has a very high volume of products, especially, it can be tempting to focus on the small handful of top sellers that are driving the vast majority of conversions. It's easily, for some of the biggest retailers, a 90-10, 10% of products are driving 90% of the revenue. Those are the sorts of splits that can be dominant when you have a big product inventory. And retailers can miss, and marketing teams can miss, how many products may be dragging down the aggregate campaign performance, because they are still serving, they are still getting some clicks, but they're not converting. So they're draining the budget, and certainly draining down the overall campaign in terms of how systems like Google's and other big advertising platforms, when they look at these, they see that the performance is lower because of those products. But it's not because of they're worthless. They may have potential. They just need special attention to tap into it. So their services like Shoptimized's incremental service are designed to address exactly that, to breathe new life into zombie products, in part by treating them separately and seeing what type of special attention they need in order to come back to life. Um, what happens in practice for retailers then is that there can be a very high volume of products that are delivering no revenue, that all of a sudden can start to deliver quite significant revenue because the targeting vastly improves. And so that's why it's called an incremental service, because it's pure upside, really. And that's what has made it really successful.
Again, really, really interesting insights there about some of the kind of campaign management elements of companies like Shoptimize. We've talked a lot about the sort of what we've seen in the past year, just so far in this conversation. If we finish up, let's look ahead at 2026. One of the things that we wanted to do with this webinar series was give some examples of opportunities that might exist in 2026. So as we go into the year ahead, how do you see sort of the smartest retailers adapting, and what are the practical steps that agencies and retailers can take to reduce wasted spend? Again, focus on that visibility, and have a more profitable 2026.
It's interesting. Looking ahead to 2026 is it's a hazy crystal ball at this stage for me. And I think for a lot of people in the industry, but there are a few things that stand out. The first is, we've talked about automation, but we haven't talked about AI in this conversation. If you if your team and if your organization is not already experimenting with lots of different AI tools and getting comfortable using AI in lots of different aspects of your workflows, you're doing yourselves a massive disservice. And that's not necessarily because AI is going to, change your life right away and make everything work so much better. But it has been um, so there are so many ways in which it can be helpful that if you're not looking for the new opportunities to deploy it, you may be missing a trick, and it should be a part of. It should be really the first step in how we think about solving new types of problems. So just to have it embedded even in the thought process is really important. Um, the second one, the takeaway for me coming out of 2025 is to stay focused on the bottom line, really on profitability. That's what keeps your business going no matter what. And it's easy to get distracted by a lot of other metrics along the way. There are many, many other meaningful numbers, especially when you are in a PPC or performance marketing team and from ROAS to conversion rates to all of the different costs per metrics. But those are really only measures of efficiency, and you can't pay salaries in ROAS or CPC. You pay salaries in the profitability that accrues to the business after the campaigns are done. So really to keep not to get distracted by all of the other complexity that happens upstream and to remember the downstream numbers that really matter. And finally, this goes back to one of my earlier points about flexibility, is staying open to new approaches. It is a really complex marketing world out there with so many vendors and platforms and tools that are all trying to get a piece of your budget. It's easy to get distracted and to waste time and money when you're experimenting. But it is really important. You can't stand still either, or you're going to be falling behind your competition. So there's a right balance between being prudent and also keeping an open mind for innovation. Some of that comes from working with the right partners, but it really is also about the attitude that you bring to the problems that you need to solve in your work.
Brian, that's been fantastic and some really interesting insights there. Just to finish up, are there any other thoughts that you have around 2026? Maybe some of the kind of the dark clouds that perhaps what's the thing that perhaps retailers and agencies and e-commerce marketers possibly haven't thought about yet that they could be starting to think about as we get into 2026, just so we can prepare for some of those challenges ahead.
I would hope, one of my hopes I put a lot of stock in the influence that marketing can have. And this is stepping back from the performance world and a little bit more of my brand marketing with a brand marketing hat on. I put a lot of hope in the influence that marketing can have on culture uh, more broadly. And these are difficult times in the world generally. And I hope that marketing and some of the work that we all do can play a role in addressing or how people are thinking about themselves in the world at large and helping people feel a greater sense of belonging and helping society to come together in times when there are challenges that threaten to pull people apart. So that's just me and my kind of social optimist. But I do see some, yeah, I think there is some grounds for that optimism when you think about the role that marketing has to play.
Fantastic. Well, look, Brian, that's been some really interesting insights this afternoon. We appreciate your time. We look forward to continuing to work with you in 2026 and hopefully bringing a few more of these insights, tips, and best practices to the market as we go forward again. So, thanks again for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, John.
So thinking about feed optimization, I think that's been fundamental to us, and it's definitely part of our foundations. I think what would be good to sort of explain what it is in practice, really, for us, and sort of define it for people who are outside of the business.
The best way to load FeedOp would be just getting the basics and the foundation right. I think one of the things that we've been able to do over the years is be able to use the internal expertise to point people in the right direction and use the tools available, such as the product feed audit, to be able to analyze where improvements can be made and where quick wins can be capitalized on. So I suppose to give it an overall sort of categorization with product fee optimization, I suppose it's the basics, the basis and the foundation of any Google shopping campaign, whether that be a standard or performance max. You will get yourself in front of more relevant search terms by optimizing in line with not only our best practices, but with the necessary channels best practices as well, whether that be Google, Meta, Instagram, wherever that might be.
What's your approach to optimizing titles in different sectors?
Typically, a Google shopping title optimization is what we know to be containing all the useful information, the brands, all the attributes, information about the products. But looking at something like Meta, it can be quite conceivable that the title structure could be completely different from that. So I think we have to factor in, and the platform enables us to do that, to be able to adopt a different approach to title optimization, depending on the individual channel. Some clients will choose the same option right the way through from Google all the way down, but we can allow them to dictate whatever they want to do. That could be something that could be done on an individual title basis. It could be something we could do with the cloning of titles. So there's very much a case that the software enables people to do what they want to do. And as far as the cloning of the titles are concerned, the platform does it. It's a very simple process, but it can be a really powerful game changer. As far as clients are concerned, they can test out different variations of those titles very, very easily within the software, increase their product count without actually having more products to sell, which gives them an opportunity of dominating the Google shopping marketplace or even the Meta marketplace.
And there's kind of two sides to it as well, isn't there? There's whether you're kind of going for best practices or whether you're going for performance. Obviously, you can kind of always do the fundamentals for best practice, but performance, you might want to mix up whether I want the brand here, whether I want the color here, and kind of mix it up as well. So it depends what you're trying to get at.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's the basic optimization that Scott touched upon is the bread and butter. It's using the creativity and the skill and the services of the platform and the skills of the people behind it to then take it to the next level. And then performance is key. So yeah, I mean, the performance rules that we've got within the platform enable clients to do whatever they want, segment those products out, best sellers, poor performers, using various metrics within Google Ads. They can even get rid of the poor performing products if they want to. It's entirely up to them. And I think that's where the platform is great, but also the client needs to know from our perspective how to implement those properly. So it's not just a case of plug it in and go, because that's when they'll make mistakes. As we referred to the best practice previously, it's best practice for every optimization that we do, whether it's a performance rule, a basic rule, cloning. Always want to try and adopt our best practice because that's what we know is going to line up with the channels.
And Brad, how have you seen, obviously the platform's evolved over the years. So how have you seen definitely our internal performance team use feed optimization and sort of how that's evolved, but also agencies as well. How have you seen sort of the platform develop internally with people and agencies?
The caching's been a big one. That's been a big kind of talking point over the last, obviously now we get it a lot around peak, but it's something that's been a bigger conversation point over the last couple of years because people are, there used to be a time where people would kind of manage a website and kind of keep things as they were quite a lot, whereas now things are changing so much. One of the big things is dynamic pricing, people changing the pricing so often. So a big conversation point that comes up more and more is about being able to keep as up to date as possible. And I think that's been one of the biggest evolutions because, there was a time where you couldn't really impact your feed and what was in there. Then we kind of brought in the phase where you could control what was in your feed, but then there's kind of come the next phase, which is keeping that feed as up to date as possible. So yeah, I think kind of that dynamic element has been a big one, having to keep up with that. Stock's always changing. Things that were performing are going out of stock, or they might be changing in price, no longer price competitive. So definitely kind of that dynamic angle, I think, has been a big change over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think almost now Shop 3.0 is exceeding the caching facility that Google has as default. Google can cache us once a day as a default option. We're caching multiple times a day. So that's getting us ahead of even what Google are doing in certain instances. So yeah, it's certainly from my perspective, it's been a massive evolution.
Yeah, there's not many people who just want the feed to cache once a day anymore. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the introduction of the inventory rules and things like that to be able to tag up fragmented stock levels across variations of products as well. Massive thing going into peak. If you've only got 2 triple XLs left in stock, like the retailer's been wanting that out for feed rather than spending budget where it's not needed.
Yeah. How have you guys seen custom mapping, the introduction of that benefit?
Craig will probably vouch for this more than me, but some feeds that we get from custom platforms, the headers are just all over the place, tagged up with things that don't match Google's schema. So it's a huge weight lifted if we just support these retailers from the outset, get them to map the feeds correctly.
Yeah, completely. And sometimes it's just a simple one that they maybe use the word shade instead of color. For example, simple one, but some are more niche. So it's just nice to be able to, in the past, go, sorry, you can't do that. Now we can load, yes, you can.
Yeah.
And I think there's opportunities for that to grow as the platform grows as well.
Yeah.
And almost be a case of, look, you can put anything in your input feed and the platform can allow you to dictate that to be whatever Google wants it to be or the other channels want it to be.
yeah, it's unlocked a lot as well for some people. Like there's so many retailers who actually put so much information in their internal systems, whether it's coming from inventories, CMSs and things, and it was all just kind of dead and we'd never find it. Whereas now we can say, actually, yeah, there's some information in there that we'd never pull through the feed because of, the mapping being different. So there's some clients where it's unlocked a lot, where it could be, just information about stock or the season. Yeah, it is. Could be anything, but it's just the more information you've got, the better, isn't it?
And it puts the onus back on the client to be able to have the option to be able to do that. In the past, it was like, yes, we can do it, but we've got to take that away, and you can't actually see it. Now it's right in front of them. So if they want to chop and change it, it's right in front of them.
Yeah.
It's like so much easier.
Yeah. And speaking to like Shopify clients, because we've recently made changes to how we actually pull data from Shopify into Shoptimised, which of course is going to really set the performance team up and the feed optimization team up to optimize better. So I'm keen to get your thoughts, because Shopify have millions of customers working with them across Europe, across the US, but sometimes when you get a Shopify feed, it's not always pretty, is it?
Yeah. I think everybody on our side always gets most excited about the Shopify feeds, kind of for a different reason to clients, but it's because you can make the most improvement to them, though, isn't it? So it's we get the most excited because there's so much extra value we can add to them. Whereas on the client side, if they're not doing FeedOp, they would be the least excited about it because it means they've got the most improvement today.
Well, yeah. I think not all Shopify customers as well, especially some SMEs, they don't have the capacity internally to optimize feeds. And they may not work with agencies that do it to the extent that we do it. So definitely for Shopify customers that are looking to use Shoptimised, the capability and what we can do in a very short window of time, it's significant, really, the turnaround. Yeah. So that's something that they can be excited about.
I think with the Shopify native apps as well, like there's a lot of limitation with them. It's great. It is a dynamic link between Merchant Center and the website itself. The difficulty with that is a lot of it is manual in terms of the optimization. So it is a case of redoing work. Whereas with ourselves, the real functionality that you get, it's constantly updated based on criteria set out by the client. So it's much more effective than what you would see. But also, it's quite expensive to get a product feed itself for Shopify rather than an API. So the cost saving alone for the clients is a great benefit as well.
Yeah. And there's probably one for you, Brad. But I think Shoptimised is, we've done very well at branding ourselves as a feed optimization platform, and incremental sales is something that we've never really, we probably haven't marketed too much, and we haven't really shouted about that often. But I think with performance rules, it's something that we use internally all the time. And we probably take the capability and how effective it is to our campaigns. We probably take it for granted. And there's not a lot of retailers and agencies that actually use performance rules. So I think it'd be good maybe to hear it from the guy who drives the team to use performance rules, why they're so effective, and what sort of things that you see from performance rules.
A lot of it is, I guess it sounds really simple, but people don't put it into practice. The simplest way I always put it to people is, if you actually put a report in front of a client and show them the wasted ad spend and say, here's 20,000 different SKUs you've got, here's all the spend going through it and all the performance, the client could sit there all day and say, yeah, we shouldn't be targeting that. We should take that out. Why wasting money on that? But when you just throw in products in a Google Shopping campaign that's using machine learning, it doesn't understand what that client understands. It doesn't understand. It'd be nice to think that Google says, oh, this isn't working, so we're going to stop spending on it. But Google don't do that. Google just keeps spending on it because that's what they're there to do, really. So there's always tons of wasted ad spend. At least half of the spend that goes through a shopping campaign is just wasted. So really, first off, just putting it simple and just saying it gives you the ability to say, set your criteria. If it's this type of product, if it's performing like this, if it's had X amount of clicks and hasn't converted, get rid of it. And as you mentioned, that can just update every single day as well, multiple times a day to keep looking back and saying whether it's in the last week, 2 weeks. So I think really it's about the principle of it is simple, but actually keeping on top of that and doing it all the time would be extremely difficult. So it's just making something simple, quick and efficient to be able to do. Because you don't want to sit and go through and do that list that we sort of mentioned. And the proof's in the pudding. We've seen Google themselves push low volume SKUs campaigns in different zombies and whatever they decide to call it at that time. And we've seen them get retailers to push them, but very rarely does the retailer keep pushing them because the performance they get from them is really poor, because it ends up being those products we spoke about, which is just dead performance, and then they're just pushing it more. But with those performance rules, being able to strip out and say, well, here's stuff that wasn't working, but there's still a big chunk of things that isn't getting traffic, but hasn't performed poorly, and being able to push those things out. Because there's essentially two types of kind of dead products. There's those that are desirable and those that are undesirable. And I think those performance rules allows you to find what's desirable and get rid of the undesirable.
Yeah. And if I had to get one thing from all three of you around what you think is the best or the most valuable change when you compare Shoptimised to Shoptimised 3, what would you say it is?
I'm going to jump in first because I think it's the same across the board with the caching, 100%. If we look at some of the challenges we faced towards the end of Shoptimised 2, it's night and day the improvement. Like you said earlier, we can 10x the amount of feeds that we can cache, the volume of SKUs we can process, how quickly we can process them as well. It's a huge improvement. But that's just for me personally. There's loads of other little changes that we've made, such as the most recent addition of advanced performance rules to our digital agency partners. I think that is going to be a great addition, and we should start to see some really good feedback from that over the weeks.
Well, I've been asking for it for long enough, so let's hope it's used.
But yeah, what one thing from you?
Yeah. Apart from the caching that Scott's pinched, I think it's just the scalability of the platform. I think because we've now got the increased caching potential, it just gives us that opportunity to grow, react in a much quicker time. Like Brad was saying earlier about things changing so dynamically, especially in peak. We can now get ahead of that for a client, as opposed to us being very reactive and going, oh yeah, we'll see that tomorrow. Now it's a case of we'll see it in an hour. So the fact that the caching frequency, the caching time, those two combined, in addition with just the opportunities to scale up the platform for Google and beyond, yeah, it just makes so much difference and life so much easier.
Yeah, I think along similar lines, but from a little bit of a different angle, but it would be the infrastructure of Shoptimised 3 and the things that's going to allow us to do in the future. We've obviously spent a lot of time building this infrastructure, building it in a way to scale, like Craig said, but more thinking scale from a new perspective in terms of building new tools, building new features, and keep kind of expanding on not just scale from a perspective of what we've got, being able to do that for more people, but scale in terms of being able to branch out sideways now and do more different things.
And because I think that's one of the most important things, isn't it? Like, certainly as a performance software, you want to be able to continuously innovate. And you want to be able to always innovate and always push forward and never really stand still. So, and I think that infrastructure, I think that's a great point. It definitely allows us to do that. Yeah, thanks guys. It's been good. It's been good to hear it from the guys that are still and continue to be in the trenches. So thank you very much.
Cheers, Nick. Cheers, Scott.
Given that we manage our own incremental clients via shopping feeds and shopping campaigns and Google Ads, we understand how fundamentally important it is to get them up and running and make them as efficient as possible, as quickly as possible. So natural, we take a large influx of new feeds onto the platform every single day. And internally, we have account managers like Beth that will obviously push through those and then set them up ready to drive the best results possible.
Absolutely. And the way that we look at that is FeedOp's so important because we only focus on shopping traffic in our Google Ads campaigns. So it's very vital for us to ensure we're getting the best space on the carousel. And that is purely by using our feed optimization tools.
So I think when that goes to an external format, people are trying to learn how to utilize feed optimization and understand the principles of the platform. I think for me, almost like a cheat sheet is using the auditing tools that we've built inside the system.
Yeah.
So immediately, like the majority of the time, the data is usually there in some format or another, but ultimately, we're limited by how the attributes are filled out and how that data file's formatted. So using the auditing tool on the platform can be really beneficial because it can immediately help you prioritize your workload in regards to product FeedOp. And then therefore as well, can also utilize the suggested optimizations.
Yes.
So we can forecast and suggest rules that should have really quick and meaningful impacts on the feed and the basic structure that you're working towards.
Something that I find very beneficial when looking at the clients and using the Shoptimised tools that we have is labels such as trending. Especially now coming into Q4, we're seeing seasonal shifts in products and we want to capitalize on that and make them as profitable as possible for people.
Yeah.
So adding labels such as our trending label where we can look at an increased percentage of conversions or an increased percentage of revenue coming through from those is really important for us to capitalize. Also, we can look at performance rules, but rather than excluding them during a peak period, we can custom label those instead. And then what that allows us to do is we can segment campaigns further and pull out products that aren't working during peak, but maybe still have the potential at a later date. Say, for example, when you're going into sale.
I think like your point on trending items as well is really beneficial because what you can use is live Google Ads data and the feed optimization software to be able to drive better insight and foresight into what it is that you're doing. So you can try and detect seasonal shifts more efficiently in terms of product type and segmenting out which products are going to perform the best at any one given time. In terms of like overall application, I think it's just really important to utilize all of the different services and sub-services that are available within inside the platform. Like we initially built Shoptimised for us because it filled a gap in things that we needed as a business. And ultimately every part of the platform should work synonymously with itself to make sure that you can maximize your Google shopping potential, whether that be via incremental sales or Boost in a sub-service, which is an extension of incremental, or also utilizing, the CPC discount via our CSS networks. So everything is designed to work alongside one another to provide maximum performance and the best results that you could possibly drive.
We also have things such as sale label where we can really drive down on what's working. Is it sale? Is it full price? We also have very precise performance rules if you did want to look at exclusion, and we can narrow down on brand, we can narrow down on product type, which is very important during this time. We can see what's working, what's not working. We also have pricing bands, which is also quite essential during this time. Do we want budget going to cheaper items? Well, we'll be able to see that using a pricing band structure within ads.
We can also use it to help mitigate wasted ad spend because we can see, what brands or what pricing bands are utilizing the majority of clicks. So we can see if that's providing a benefit or just wasting ad spend in general and then help mitigate that. So ultimately, it'll give us the opportunity to push budget into the best performing products at any one moment.
If I had one piece of advice for retailers going into 2026, it would definitely be nail the fundamentals. For a lot of retailers, Q1 tends to be quite a quiet period, but irrespective of that, you know when your peak is versus out of season. So it's important that you utilize that downtime to nail your FeedOp and make sure that it's all in and it's ready for your peak period.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that I work quite closely with our retailers on is providing more foresight into the relationships. Like, there are many other things that we can't see from Google Ads in terms of business operation. There's many other cogs turning. So I think for the most part, it's about getting a really firm education on how you can utilize all the different aspects and areas of the platform to maximize your own potential and growth. And as I mentioned before, it kind of comes down to, there's the 4 pillars of Shoptimised in that regard. You've got incremental, FeedOp, CSS discounts, and then, furthermore, like performance rules and supplementary campaign types like incremental, plus, and boost. So it just helps us kind of bring everything together to provide a really solid infrastructure to drive, the most visibility and most revenue as we possibly can.
Competition's really tight in 2026. We're already seeing how big feed optimization is just within 2025. People are fighting for the space on the carousel. So it's so important to just ensure that you're nailing your feed optimization and you have everything in. Because like we say, your site may be perfect, but that doesn't necessarily mean it follows through to the feed.
So usually when I'm having these conversations with retailers, I'm trying to implement as much foresight into the relationship as possible. So we're always ready to strike at the most efficient times. And ultimately we want to utilize all of the different features inside the platform at once to make sure that we can provide the best service possible. So that will come as a whole package kind of scenario where we can utilize the CSS network for discounts on CPC, the incremental services to target and drive revenue to the non-converting products, alongside obviously great product feed optimization, creating feeds for multiple channels so we can support you across all channels that are paid. And ultimately just make sure that we're prepared so we can drive the best possible value of success at any one given time.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and thank you to the team for taking part. We look forward to the new year and the plans we've got with it Shoptimised, and we look forward to seeing and hearing from you soon. Thank you.